Hi there, my name is Rachael Heffer and I serve as Head of Mission at the Evangelical Alliance. It's an absolute joy of my job to serve in our unity organisation that is the EA, to work with organisations like Faith in Later Life. We love nothing more as a unity membership organisation to be able to cheer on and champion, pray together, stand with, collaborate with organisations like Faith in Later Life, who like us have a heart for the gospel, wanting to see many people up and down across our nations come to know Jesus in this season. It's been an absolute joy for me to work with Alex and the wider team, to cheer on the church champions and to be engaged with them over the last few years to do just that. What a joy it is to see in this time and season just what God is doing, again, across the UK, indeed across the globe, but seeing people of all ages come to faith. It's been astounding, hasn't it? And I'm sure for you, like me, the amount of research during 2025 that encouragingly has spoken to growth in the church. What's been important for me is to realise that whilst we hear so much about the very young, our teenagers, even down to our children and also young adults coming to faith and leading the way in many ways with this openness to things of faith and spiritual curiosity, what's been so encouraging and important for me is to recognise and to speak to the fact that people of all ages are indeed recognising Jesus, often for the first time, and are making commitments to faith. What an encouragement for the work of Faith in Later Life, with that imperative and mandate to take the good news of the gospel to those in their more senior years. It's against that backdrop that I'd love to share with you some of the research that we brought out in 2025 from the Evangelical Alliance. We did a piece of research and commissioned it with two brilliant researchers, Dr. Ruth Perrin from the University of Durham, along with fellow Joe Wharton. And the Finding Jesus research speaks to how we can look at identifying those pathways to faith in adulthood. It's all free to download on findingjesus.co.uk. But the reason that we commissioned it was we wanted to know answers to questions like, against the backdrop of the church growing, of this openness to faith and this spiritual curiosity, we wanted to know, well, actually, for those who had come to faith in the last 5 years, what was it that started the journey? We wanted to know, how long did it take from exploring faith to actually making a decision to follow Jesus? We also wanted to know, well, who was alongside? How did it feel? How would people describe the journey? What was most helpful? What was most challenging? And so on. So against that backdrop, I'd love to share with you some of those research findings. One of the first questions that we asked people was, how would they have described their faith, if at all, or their Christian identity, faith identity, before actually embarking on that journey to faith? And what we found was that across the board, 38% of people would have said that they would consider themselves to be a cultural Christian. Now, what's interesting is, as we look to our seniors, those aged 65 and up, who were also 25 of them involved in our survey, we found that actually a much greater number, 67% of people, would consider themselves a cultural Christian. And only 1 in 3 of those respondents in our survey said that they had no affiliation or no Christian backdrop at all. What we found in the overall survey was that 72% of those participating with us said that actually they could track back at some point in their life. They had this residual sense of Christianity, whether that had been going to a Christian school, being part of a Sunday school or a youth group, whether that had been on Christian summer camps or somebody going into assemblies over the years. What this hopefully encourages us as church leaders, as ministers, as church champions, as youth leaders, as I'm still involved in involved in youth ministry myself, is that where we sow in, often what is sown in the very young, in our young people, in young adults, sticks there, doesn't it? And we believe that as we sow, that the Lord will bring about the harvest. How encouraging for us today to note too that actually, even for those in later life, what has been sown in, even in their younger years, may well be brought about to actually bring about a conviction and that journey towards Jesus, even at a later stage in their life. We went on to ask people this question too. What was it that prompted you re-exploring or exploring for the first time the faith journey? And whilst we found that, again, in our overall snapshot of those that we surveyed, we found that the top answers were something of quite an existential nature. 37% of people said that it was that they just needed help with life, that they were searching for a deeper meaning, and 32% of people said it was often off the back of a difficult life event, a difficult, painful or traumatic experience. Interestingly, what we found with our seniors was that actually, whilst 29% of the whole snapshot of our research said that it was seeing the impact of Christian faith on the life of somebody that they knew, amongst our seniors, that number was actually 46%. Well, I hope that encourages you right from the outset. What it points to is this power of relationship, that actually for us, as we as practicing Christians live out our Christian faith alongside those in later life, actually, whilst there might be a search for greater meaning, depth of faith, this rootedness and open spirituality, for a greater number of people, it was actually seeing the impact of a Christian's life, Christian faith on someone's life. And not only that, 33% of people said it was the actions of a Christian towards me that swayed me towards starting to explore faith for myself. And 29% of people said it was the sense that Christian faith gave their life meaning. How encouraging for us that as we look at those around us and those that we're trying to reach, that we're reminded once again and time again through our research and indeed the research of others, the power of relationships in what we model to those alongside us. We loved hearing story after story again of those who just said that actually this sense of looking for meaning as well as the power of relationship. Many people told us that actually they recognised that from the outside it just looked like they had it all, but actually they really weren't quite happy. And we saw that time again as well within those in later life, that actually maybe striving over the years, maybe now retired, maybe well into retirement and into their later years, something was just not quite scratching that itch, and there was just a sense of discontent and unhappiness, and that started their journey towards Jesus. What we also saw amongst many of our seniors who took part was this sense of spiritual encounter, the ways in which God was encountering people through visions, through dreams, through encounters, whether it's mountaintop moments or even in their garden shed. We heard stories of people who again just felt the spiritual presence of God. We went on to ask people, well, how long did that journey take from actually exploring faith to becoming a Christian? And what we found for many was that actually that journey didn't take very long at all, surprisingly so. In our widest snapshot of the research, we found that actually 59% of people said that that journey took just under a year. How encouraging that is. For our older people, we found that actually it took a little bit longer. It was more likely to take 2 or 3 years. How imperative for us to again start now to be prayerful, to be intentional, to be journeying alongside people. Interestingly, we found again through our research that the word most used as people described how the faith journey and how that exploration felt was the word challenging. 41% of people said that actually whilst it was good, it was life-giving, other words were encouraging, it was hope-filled. Actually, we found that the majority of people cited that journey as challenging. It's good for us, isn't it, as ministers, as leaders, as people journeying alongside, as church champions, to recognise that whilst the journey towards Jesus could be hope-filled, encouraging and so on, for many, it was deeply challenging to aspects of their lifestyle, language, behaviours, the environment that they inhabited. That came through as well in our data set that we pulled out for those in later life too. We went on to ask, what was it that helped you the most as you explored the Christian faith? And this again was fascinating, particularly alongside those of more senior age. And we found that this resoundingly, that whilst people cited it was going to church that was hugely helpful for them, we found that a vast number of people said that actually it was engaging with the Bible. I'd love to encourage you today that where you're working with people in older generations, that actually giving them gospels, pointing them to some of the amazing and beautiful gospels from our friends at Hope Together or Good News for Everyone or the Pocket Testament League actually can be transformative. We heard that 38% of people, much higher than in our general broader scope, but 38% of seniors said that actually having a Bible, being pointed to books, resources, printed literature, was actually really helpful for them and was a hugely significant part of their faith journey. We also heard from many respondents that they wanted to know where to start. When they were given a Bible and when they had it put into their hands, actually part of their encouragement back to us as part of the research was, please tell us where to start. Some people said they started at Genesis and read the whole Bible. How encouraging. But for many, they wanted to know that actually maybe to start with the Gospels and the life of Jesus would be really important to them. What we found too was that they were hugely encouraging of the local church, that they found that particularly seeking out a church leader was important to those in later life. However, that journeying alongside others, again, time, patient discussion, hospitality, practical kindness were some of the things that were cited. And I'd love to just leave you with a couple of final pointers that I hope will encourage you as we together look to seek the Lord to invest and to encounter people in their more senior years. One is this aspect of not just personal relationship, but of talking. We found that actually in people in their later years, maybe coming out of the loss of loved ones or a spouse, actually the aspect of that journeying with became really important. Some of the seniors who took part in the survey again said they hugely encouraged being known by name, part of a community, whether that was a Christianity Explored course or an Alpha course, whether it was becoming part of a cafe church that was connected to a church or a midweek group as well. What they wanted was that time with people and to be able to ask questions and wrangle over them, not just ask one question and have a whole monologue come back to them. We also found that through some of the practical ministries, they would want to serve as well and be part of that inner hub. Many people told us that as they approached these ministries that they became part of, whether it was helping to serve in a food bank when they had time that was more available in their later years, whether it was involving or investing time with CAP or with toddler groups, many people cited the fact that as they approached the church, as they became part of those communities, they were astounded of just how loved they felt, how well welcomed. And the question that they often asked was just, why are these people like that? Don't we have an amazing opportunity as individual Christians and as the church to make people feel really loved? Just lastly, I'd love to take you back to the statistics around the Bible. We again saw time after time people saying that whilst they tussled with and struggled with some of those difficult aspects of understanding, it was learning to read the Bible and learning how to pray, which was both joy-filled but also deeply challenging. What does it look like for us as those trying to get Bibles and Gospels into people's hands, trying to build those relationships and foster those places where people feel warmly welcomed, loved, and made church accessible to them? What would it look like for us as individuals to be a bit bolder and braver, to maybe open the Bible with a senior friend of ours over a coffee on a weekly or daily basis or bi-weekly, whatever that looks like? The Bible has come through once again as being utterly transformative in many people's lives. There is much more about the Finding Jesus research that I could share with you, but I hope that encourages you. Do go there in conversation, be great friends in this season of wanting to see God powerfully at work. I absolutely pray for and cheer you on and champion the work of faith in later life. And I hope that together this will be truly a season where we see Jesus made known to people of all ages. So every blessing to you. We pray blessing on the work of faith in later life and do hope that you're encouraged by seeing where God is at work and how many people have come into very real and loving relationships with Jesus. Again, of the backdrop of people of all ages. God bless you. Take care. Stay in touch.